Good morning to you all, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by Transnet National Ports Authority. My name is Nokuzola Nkowane. I'm the Executive Manager for Operations, Performance and Reporting at Tnpa. Today, I will be hosting and facilitating the session. I am aware that some of you are joining us from our live Vimeo link, but you are also on MS Teams, on Zoom, also on various digital platforms and social channels like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Wherever you find yourselves watching us, we welcome you. Please also note that today's session will be recorded and we will be circulating after the event the link shared with all us share stakeholders, as well as through our various communication platforms, including social media. I'm sure all of you, ladies and gentlemen, have realized that September is a special month for Tnpa. You would remember that we kicked off this month with a webinar where we were sharing maritime opportunities with our learners and young people. We followed that webinar with a look at the role that technology has in the maritime industry. We had of existence, 2 decades of maritime evolution. It was in 2000 that Transnet's then single port division, Portnet, was split into 2. This was the landlord and the operator businesses. The sister division, Transnet Port Terminals, then called South African Port Operations, became the division responsible for terminal operations. While authority focus has always been on infrastructure, marine services, and it also included its real estate business. In today's virtual Maritime Heritage celebration, we will share our maritime evolution journey and achievements since Tnpa became a separate Transnet operating division 20 years ago. We will honor the pioneers who transformed the maritime industry in the South African, but also in the continent and in the worldwide context. We will also hear from our speakers their aspirations for the South African port system beyond 2020. We're very pleased to have several industry leaders alongside Transnet and Transnet National Ports Authority leadership with us today. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Portia Derby, the Group Chief Executive of Transnet SOC Limited. We also have Mr. Mthunzi Madia, the Acting Deputy Director General for Maritime Transport, and he is also the National Port Consultative Committee Chairperson. He is from the Department of Transport. We also welcome Captain Salvatore Sano, the chairperson of the Mediterranean Shipping Company, known as MSC, here in South Africa. We welcome Commander Tsietsi Mogele. He is the founder and chairman of Elecom Group. Also, one of our speakers and welcome is Mr. Sobantu Tilai. He is the acting chief executive of the South African Maritime Safety Authority, SAMSA. It is also my pleasure to announce that from Tnpa, we have our Mr. Pepi Silinga. He is the incoming chief executive of Tnpa. We also welcome Mr. Khomutso Pihlela. He is the acting Tnpa chief executive. And last but not least, we have Captain Rufus Likala, who is the TNPA Chief Harbour Master and also has the role of the Acting Chief Operating Officer for TNPA. A warm welcome to you all our guest speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue, please join us in viewing a very special video from TNPA, where we are celebrating 20 years of the maritime evolution. Moving on to our addresses for today. First up on our program this morning, we have the TNPA Acting Chief Executive, Mr. Khomotso Phihlela, who is going to unpack for us the context of this heritage celebration. Mr. Phihlela commenced his career at Transnet in 2003, and he served as the Chief Executive at TNPA for 6 years. And this period was from 2005 to 2011. After various roles at Transnet Group, Mr. Phihlela returned in an interim role as TNPA CE in October 2019. Mr. Phihlela, over to you.
Thank you, Nogzola, for those kind words. Good morning, everybody. And thank you very much for joining TNPA and Transnet today for this special Maritime Heritage celebration. Today, we acknowledge pioneers who, over the past 2 decades, have transformed our marine operations environment and created a proud legacy for the organization and the country. In 1999, just 12 candidates of color, including 1 female, were selected for an accelerated training program in Rotterdam aimed at bringing in new generation of marine pilots, managers, and other marine professionals. Transnet's transformation efforts in that area were led by Commander Tsietsi Mokhele. Good to see you, sir, in his capacity as a transformation manager at Transnet. And the 12 are now known as the class of 1999. And they went on to transcend their circumstances, making the most of the opportunities afforded to them as they worked through their way up the marine ranks. And 2 decades later, many of them have ascended to senior roles in the industry through hard work, commitment, dedication, perseverance, the development of our and grown a commandable fleet. Sorry, I've got a disturbance. A commandable fleet, and created a vast complex of very sophisticated cargo capacity in our environment. And to be able to accommodate and handle a new generation of vessels in an increasing competitive global market. And to these colleagues, we are very proud of your success. We salute you all for the pioneering role that you've played in driving change in South Africa and in your effort to make sure that we have a thriving maritime environment. Let me also thank our partners who have just joined. Most of them also were part of the Tnpa the community. Mtunzi Madia is one of them, Captain Tnpa is one of them, and also our steadfast supporter who's been with us all along, the Captain Sano there, who I believe is still going to speak. Thank you very much for attending this session, and I hope you have a fruitful and enjoyable session with us for the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Phihlela, for that insightful address, talking to us about the new generation mariners, hard work, commitment, resilience, and also it was not only just about the people, it was about the infrastructure, developing the port system of the future. We thank you, Mr. Phihlela. Next up to discuss the vision behind the Tnpa Transformation Maritime Strategy of 1999 is none other than Commander Tnpa Mogele. He is the former transformation manager. He was tasked with the mandate of positioning the country's maritime sector as part of the global maritime sector. We welcome you, and over to you, Commander Tnpa.
Sorry. Greetings to all of the leadership of Transnet and Tnpa, in particular, the Group CE, who I think at this moment is charged with the similar challenges that were facing Transnet at the dawn of democracy in the country. To the acting Tnpa CE, Mr. Phihlela, greetings to you, sir, and our incoming CE that I'm really excited to have coming in as the next leader in this important organization in the economy of our country. And I cannot allow myself to hoard the challenge that was facing us at the time and the solutions that came in. There was already a leadership at Portnet, and many of them are being saluted, whether named or not named. And I also do remember that the context for change had already taken place throughout Portnet. What was the missing bit was the water side. And my being brought in 1999 was specifically to assist in moving forward the transformation agenda on the water side. And that was the entirety of the maritime services, but in particular the marine services, but lighthouses, into dredging and the rest of the floating businesses of Transnet. But I'm a person who likes to make reference to historical moments. This year marks 160 years since the arrival of a tugboat brought in by the private sector, landed in Agua Bay and then moved on to Cape Town. And the arrival of that tugboat, the Albatros, happened in 1859. But the very first decision taken by the Harbour Authority in the Port of Durban happened in 1855 at its very first city. And one of the first decisions that were taken was the ship assist technologies that would be needed for the opening up and the growth of our international trade. Therefore, this context informs the importance of the marine services. It's not just a ship assist service, but the journey of its transformation could not only focus on matters, on singular matters. It was a transformation of the business from multiple perspectives, but key amongst them at the time that we were crafting out the strategy. I had come to understand quite well that we were undergoing a transformation of the entire port system. And therefore we needed value propositions that suggested that transformation must support the bigger agenda of the country as we emerge out of apartheid, and therefore impact on trade, bring efficiency into the port system, undertake the infrastructure transformation, be the tugboats, the dredgers, the H2 navigation infrastructure, and ultimately the biggest ticket of them all, which was the issue of change in the diversity of people at the organization. And that's where the class of 1999 becomes such an important example of how history can inform the future. Specifically, as I lay my, maybe the context for later engagements, the class of 99 were not just beneficiaries of a transformation system. Many of the examples that will come through today will indicate very young people bringing dynamism into the system as they themselves are transforming as beneficiaries, but they were tasked with essentially changing the way business was done. And I'm hoping that in the examples and conversations that follow, that the heritage of the class of 99 will go beyond just the diversity aspects, but indicate that they changed the way we did business, they changed the way we thought about technology, the way we thought about the future of the business, and the way we handled the culture of competitiveness and efficiency. In my last closing comments on this note, I salute all of them all over the country throughout the business because they have endured. 21 years they have endured, but in 21 years, they've held up the light to what transformation can mean, not just as a heritage looking backward, but also as a windscreen through which we can start casting our eyes over the next curve of transformation of our port system. I'm sure when we come back, we can then deal with the specificity of what was happening at the time. But my salute to them is not just that they joined, but it is in that they became the energy for transforming and changing what is now Tnpa for the better, and the country has become more competitive and the system has become much more efficient. I thank you, and I'm looking forward to further engagements. Once again, thanks for inviting us to this celebration. I thank you.
That was Commander Tsietsi Mokhele. Thank you, Commander, for giving us that context for change, but also highlighting that it was not only just for Tnpa, but it was a drive for change for the entire business and for the entire maritime industry. Ladies and gentlemen, I do not know about you, but we've also received a brief history lesson. 160 years ago, the first tugboat touched our shores in Algoa Bay. Thank you, Commander. Next up to discuss further the maritime transformation journey, its achievements and milestones, is our own Tnpa Chief Harbour Master, Captain Rufus Lekala. Over to you, Captain.
Good morning, Nongozola. Thanks for the opportunity. Good morning, Transnet leadership, especially to the GCE of Transnet, Ms. Portia Davi, to the acting CEO of the Tnpa, the incoming CEO, Mr. Pepe Silinga, Commander Tsietsi Mokhele, and colleagues. Thank you for, on behalf of the class of 99, I am privileged to be sitting here today addressing the colleagues and sharing the history and the journey that we have traversed since 1999. When I think a little bit of what happened in 1999, I thought maybe the organization was a little bit crazy to allow itself to give youngsters of our caliber, who had no idea what maritime was, to be in this kind of operations, especially in piloting. Some of us come from rural deep Limpopo, where we have never seen a vessel before. The first time you encounter with the vessel was that you have to be a navigation officer, traveling all over the world with these vessels and coming back to South Africa, bringing cargo to respective ports. Years later, we were then given an opportunity of becoming marine pilots. And marine pilot is one of the most prestigious jobs around the world, and it was for the selected few. But the Transnet National Ports Authority and Transnet at the time saw fit that we need to allow indigenous South Africans to be given these particular skills. And we, as the youngsters of that moment, we never missed this opportunity. When we were given the opportunity, we took the baton. The only thing that was on our mind was success, representing South Africa Pty Limited. And I can say with facts today that the entire Transnet and the Tnpa is proud of these young mariners that were pioneers, because we've laid the foundation for the incoming pilots to make sure that they represent South Africa, Transnet, and the Tnpa with flying colors. We had some challenges along the way, but I can talk about myself. I remember pilots running away from me when I was in the boardroom that didn't want to transfer skills. One had to break the barriers by making friends with the port control staff. They will whisper in your ears to tell you when the next ship is coming, and the pilot will see you behind him. We were very hungry for the skills. And other challenges is that when one was promoted as a harbour master, I will cite one fundamental challenge that I encountered in Cape Town. I recall being appointed the harbour master of the Port of Cape Town in 2004. When I arrived in Cape Town, the stakeholders in Cape Town were predominantly white people. They took 8 months to speak to me. They will speak through my deputy at the time, who happened to be a white person. But they realized after 8 months that all the decisions that are happening in the port, I'm the one who's making the decision, and they had to turn around and come back to the real head of the port. And thanks to the leadership of Transnet and Tnpa for giving us such a support that is amazing. And we will retrospectively make sure that all the people that are coming behind us, we give same support. And thank you very much, Nogzola.
Thank you, Captain Rufus Likala. Ladies and gentlemen, we are still going to have the conversation with the captains and the commander and the rest of our panel, where we're going to be talking about, it's 2020 now. We are celebrating the Maritime Heritage. Now what? Where do we go beyond 2020? So we're still going to have a very interesting conversation. Next up on our conversation, we are honored to hear from the Transnet Group Chief Executive, Portia Debbie. Over to you, Portia.
Good morning, colleagues, and I want to say a special good morning to Tunzi from the Department of Transport, because I imagine that you've got many urgent things that you could be dealing with, and here you are with us. I also want to thank the people who agreed to be on the panel to speak. Commander Tsietsi, I've not met you, and greetings to you too. And also many of the people I've spoken to in meetings without actually seeing, thanks to COVID. So thank you very much for participating and being present to this discussion. I also want to extend my appreciation, deep appreciation to Khumutso Pihlele. Khumutso, it's not your farewell, but I just thought in public I should thank you very much in the couple of months that I've been here. And I imagine everybody else has to thank you, even the period prior, for coming in and acting and steering the ship at Tnpa. I also want to thank Pepi, who these are my notes, and so you don't have to shoot me at the end of it. But anyway, so I thought is that, if you consider since Vasco da Gama first passed by the Cape of Storms, as it was called, probably still is. In fact, at this stage with global warming, probably virtually everything has to be called South Africa of storms. Much has happened along our 2,800 kilometer coastline, from the spice routes, and we often forget that that's where we start off, from the spice routes to today's vast movements of traded goods around the world. Today, we are gathered as we celebrate the heritage of the maritime industry and its contribution to the South African economy. We are still in the middle of the COVID pandemic. Today, much has been learned over the period. We will continue to do so because until there's a solution, we are in the middle of it. Hopefully, we'll also learn going forward how we plan, because there'll be another one for sure. If this one is just the indications of the globalness and the flows of virtually everything, both goods and also disease. We have to thank the many men and women who work at our ports. Commander Tsietsi Mukele, the master mariners and the ship's pilot, Captain Rufus and his team across the system, who took charge over the years and actually drove the transformation. The story that you tell, Captain Rufus, is a story that I think many of us can tell who were first in the transformation years in the government of South Africa and in all of the state-owned enterprises. But we have you guys to thank and give credit for the fact that you stuck it out and pushed through and ensured that you drove the transformation. It's not nice to be called an affirmative action candidate. Nobody likes that. But who cares? You opened the way, and for that, we thank you. For that reason, it becomes easier. The first woman who entered and have opened the doors for many of others to come, we thank you too for that effort. Nothing fascinates me as when you hear an African woman from some deep rural area who never even jumped into a pool, and they introduce you to her and they say she's a pilot, and you think, damn, what humans are able to do. And really, we have a responsibility never, ever to exclude anyone again. It mustn't happen on our watch. The Oprah always say, Oprah and Winfrey view, and all of us must listen. We all do. She always asks, what do you know for sure? Now, it's normally at the end of your career. This is just, I can tell you for sure as it relates to this recent period with COVID. What I know for sure is that the South African logistics system, and thus actually the economy, rests on the shoulders of the port system, both Tnpa, TPT, and the various port operators. For a fact, you can look at the data. The numbers don't lie to see how important that is to our logistics system, and therefore how important it is that we appropriately look after these assets. Now, it's a fact that and I often find quite useful to remember, Tnpa assets, asset base, and I go back to this on purpose. It consists both of land, basic port infrastructure, the marine fleet that we have at the 8 commercial ports. And I didn't know this, so even I found out something, is that our 9th port, Port Nolloth, which is the port I know from my youth, is leased to De Beers on a whole, completely leased to De Beers. So we actually have quite an amazing heritage as we start off in terms of an asset base. And I think the question we all should ask ourselves is, what are we going to do with that asset? Now, South Africa makes up a very tiny portion of Africa's 26,000 kilometers of coastline. It accounts, however, for 3 of the top 10 ports in the world, in the top 10 ports from Africa, when you look at global standing. So having both Durban, Richards Bay, and Saldanha in the top 10 of Africa. However, tragically, only 1 African port appears in the top 50. And this depends on which metric you use, and it's the port of Morocco. Now, it's important, this point, that you have a continent of close on 1 billion people, and the activity that we have, and only 1 of our ports is in the top 50. Something must be done. A lot needs to be done. We have a lot of work to do going forward as a continent, and we have to bring our contribution as South Africa to this question. Our low port volumes point to a paucity of intra-regional trade, and frankly, we just don't trade enough with the world. Is the thing we must change. We may have the mineral resources that we boast about. However, as a result of our inadequate infrastructure and sometimes its sheer absence, we've not been able to take our place at the stage, even leveraging an asset that we have. So we have a responsibility to build our competitiveness in the whole port logistics systems. And as South Africa, we have a fundamental and profound responsibility to ensure that we make our contribution to the sub-region that we belong to. And as a contribution to the sub-region, it will drive also on the continent. So what do I see as our challenges going forward? One, we need to contribute towards employment creation wherever we are as South Africans. To my mind, this is the South African challenge, economic challenge, is employment creation. In that case, Tnpa, we will have to strengthen our linkages with the coastal IDZs and all our local municipalities or metros wherever we are based. A symbiotic relationship between the IDZs and Transnet is the only way to drive growth of manufacturing and thus jobs for our people, whilst growing port volumes and therefore our profitability and competitiveness. No lie about that. A new exciting development is the proposed port in the Northern Cape, Bochubai. We will be intensifying the study of this project and look forward to a dynamic relationship with the Northern Cape government around this project and many others. This port has the potential to explode mining activity in the Northern Cape. Bearing in mind, we must be concerned and worried about how we generate jobs. Of the top 10 ports in the world, 7 are in China. That tells you something about the importance of China as a manufacturing hub. These ports moved cumulatively 171.89 million TEUs in 2018. This is according to World Shipping Council. Now, if you look at the shipping routes from China to Asia, to Africa, they are very sparse. In fact, extremely sparse. Much like the accumulation years, and the accumulation years is when the Silk Roads first started, which is in the early 1300s. Africa, it was a focus fundamentally on the Mediterranean and Europe, and much of Africa remained excluded. And that's why I started with Vasco da Gama, because it's only when Vasco da Gama sailed around good but in terms of actively engaging with us, that wasn't the case. So this must change. We have to become part of the new Silk routes this time around, and we have to work together. It is the only thing that matters for it, actually. We can't have reached the limit. The story must be told beyond the first black this or first black female that. We must look around and see a sea of faces of all colors and genders that reflect the members of this family called South Africa. Without growth, we remain a small at risk of at the speed of knots. We can do to work together to achieve this. We must remember the competition is with the world. We must come together, listen to each other. Whether we agree or not is besides the point. The point is to understand each other's perspective, so that by this time next year, let us be just one small step further from where we are today. Ngiyabonga kakhulu.
Thank you, Portia, for that insightful address. Do you know for sure? South African logistics, where the South African economy relies on heavily, rests on the entire port system. The question has been asked by Portia. What are we going to do with our asset base that it benefits not only the maritime industry, but also the South African economy, the African continent, and the world? We've done the celebrations, we've heard our first. We need now to start looking at all the faces that reflect this beautiful nation of ours, South Africa. Thank you so much, Portia, for that address. Ladies and gentlemen, throughout the week, we have been receiving messages of support from all our stakeholders and customers. At this stage, I would just like to read one that has come from the Department of Transport, from one of the directors, which says, I will read it out. Heritage is about celebrating our diverse culture, and no other workplace achieves that but the sea, bringing together all for common good. We appreciate the strides made by our Tnpa and to many more decades of service excellence in the port system. For shipping is international by nature, and the world is our oyster. Congratulations, Tnpa. We thank you all, our customers, stakeholders, and industry partners for the messages of support. Ladies and gentlemen, key to Tnpa's successes over the years has been our people. Among them are pioneers who have transformed the maritime industry and created a proud legacy for the organization and the country. As we look back in 20 years of Tnpa as an operating division of Transnet, it is with great pride that I introduce the Tnpa Maritime Heritage Legacy documentary. Can you please join us in viewing this documentary video, paying homage to our trailblazers and their contributions to Tnpa's maritime heritage.
South Africa's maritime transformation began in 1999, when the first group of future leaders underwent training in Rotterdam. This is the story of their ascendance in the maritime sector and their ongoing pursuit of equality in a previously white male-dominated industry. These men and women, who come from the most humble backgrounds, are now at the helm, guiding Tnpa through the 21st century under the leadership of Captain Rufus Lekala.
When I was driving taxis, I used to have a dream of mine because I didn't want to go back where I come from. As a driver, you have to learn to control all characters. Your duty is to take them from point A to point B safely. They don't know your background because they associate taxi driving with inferiority. They don't know that you are there for the sake of feeding your family. I was the first in the family to finish a matric, first in the family to end up in a university. But also, that motivated me. It made me a very strong character. I got nominated as one of the person that were going to be in the pilot training. Then we went to Rotterdam in September of 1999. I became a pilot in Saldanha. I worked as a pilot for a period of 6 to 7 months. Then I got relocated out of Saldanha. 2002, the harbour master of the Port of East London decided he wants to go take early retirement. And the leadership said, look, since you are there, why don't we appoint you as a harbour master? I said, but look, I don't think I'm ready for being a harbour master. I said, but there's no absolute science. Human beings are not, we cannot put them in the test tube and test them whether they're ready for this and that. Just take the job. While I was still entrenching myself in East London, I got a call. Guy, the harbour master of the port of Cape Town is retiring. Like, oh, you are moving to come and be harbour master of the port of Cape Town. I said, but look guys, my career started in Cape Town in 1999, but now I'm going back as a leader of the port. They said, don't worry, pack and go. It was not easy when you get to Cape Town, especially when you find that you are going to be a leader of people that used to be your superiors. In 2007, I was on leave. I remember my daughter had just been born. She was about 14 days old. I was on leave and the CEO calls me to say, hey, Chief, I want to see you. Then he comes, he sits in that office. When he sits in that office, he says to me, Chief, you know that we are doing restructuring in the organization. You are ready now to become the harbour master of the port of Durban. Okay. Durban is the biggest port. I said, yeah, but look, you've been East London for 3 years. You are now in Cape Town for 3 years. You have got 6 years experience as a harbour master. And we feel now is opportune because the harbour master of the port of Durban is retiring. My goal when I took over as a chief harbour master, I said, look, it's for me to start a radical transformation of the harbour masters.
Another member of the class of 99 is Alex Mia, whose journey began as a shorehand in Richards Bay.
My background is actually from the rural area at a small town on the northern Natal called Eshawe. And accidentally, when I left school, finishing matric, I found myself working in the Railway and Harbours Department in 1985, where we were shore hands actually helping in the mooring of the vessels calling the Port of Richards Bay. And then from there on, I got attracted to becoming a mariner, seeing these vessels coming in and out of the Port of Richards Bay, bringing in cargo. The moment where I felt, yes, I made it, is when actually one of the old guys who used to be a driver transporting the mooring shore hands to and from ships. And then I used to say to them, one day I will drive these big ships. And they used to laugh at me, saying, what does he think he is? And then I used to insist that I will be a port captain in this port. I was saying when I was still in the Richards Bay during the years of 1985, 86, 87. And then one day when I've achieved my pilot license, this same old man had already become a pilot car driver. And then he was taking me from the ship now back to port control. And then he reminded me this when I had already forgotten actually, and then say, hey, Pilot Mayor, do you remember when you arrived here and you're still young telling us that one day you'll drive these ships? And then we used to laugh at you, but look at you now, you are there. And then I actually laughed and was so excited that he remembered those things I said when I was young, just saying for the sake of saying, not even knowing where to study for this career, where to start, and who can help me about it.
The class of 99 had to prove their value over and over again. Their shared journey is one of camaraderie, companionship, and overcoming resistance to a new generation of maritime leaders of color.
I guess these things are put out in the stars, really, you know. My father was a skipper of a fishing trawler in the port, and as a youngster I would go out fishing with him, and he was a captain of his little fishing boat and in and out of the port of PE. By the time I matriculated and finished school, my dad had passed on long ago already, and I think my mom was driven for me to follow in his footsteps kind of thing. I was a lifeguard all my years. I joined the naval cadets. I got involved in everything maritime related. I didn't have a clue around the actual mainstream maritime career of tugs, commercial ships, container ships and all these things. What I did know, of course, is what I was exposed to as a youngster. It was tough times. It's not knowing what we were achieving at the time is the entire transformation of an industry. We basically grew up together. Then we used to travel with bus this way, that way. It was trying to make ends meet, trying to travel to and from tech through, you know, all these good things. But I think that is what shaped me as a person. We made it through Technicon. We then went to sea as cadets. 22 years later, this is where I find myself as harbour master in the port of PE.
Their journey has paved the way for others, and most especially opened the doors for women to play a vital role in this industry.
I don't think I realized at the time how big it actually was. Being a tug master, you understand what a pilot does, but I don't think we actually understood, and personally understood, what bigger challenge it was going to be and what impact we needed to have made. But more importantly, it was somebody's dream to have convinced the leadership at the time that this is what we need to do for the country.
Along those ways, we not only developed ourselves, but we also developed the others as well too, that were after us, that came in after us as well. And the transformation was, I would say, in a way radical as well too, because there was a bit of resistance, but we ensured, we persevered and made sure that as much as we were successful, we did not let anything deter us in our path of getting to our goals. Yeah. When we first started off, we only had one female in 1999, so it was Teresa Williams, I remember. But now, if you look at it from the time that the course has, the program has started, there's been many females included in there.
Now, when you look back, you see the management, you see in key position, you see pilotage, you see tug masters are ladies, you see everything. We are actually the biggest employer of ladies in maritime in this country, and in the world we are the biggest employer of females in the Port Authority. Now we have 3 ladies as our harbour master, and the deputies, we managed to have 60% of the deputies are all female. And it's an achievement that I've thought but we planted it from 2012 until now. It was not easy, because I said to myself, I was given an opportunity. It's upon myself to make sure that I give others opportunity, but not only give opportunity, also support.
Being a female pioneer is a difficult path in a male-dominated industry that calls on mental, physical and spiritual strength.
What it felt like being the only woman, up until that point, it started becoming the norm for me, because just the year before I qualified as a ship navigation officer. So on every course I was the only female. On every ship I was on for my cadetship, I was the only female. Sometimes there was a second female, but I was always usually the only one. So it started feeling normal. History needs me, my country needs me to become a marine pilot and a female. And all my experience leading up to that prepared me for it. Being the first in many aspects before then. And I just dug deep. I have an exceptionally strong faith.
It was difficult. Sometimes I'll be alone as a trainee, as a cadet. And you know how men will treat you when you're the only female. It's like you're invading their space. They were not ready for you. It was difficult. It was really challenging. I became one of the 3 first female pilots to obtain the open license. That means you can do any kind in any type of a ship. We were the first females. So that was history in the making. So that was the best moment. It has drastically changed, because there are more of us now. So in a day, you get female in the entire shift. So it's like it's normal.
When you're working at sea, there's a lot of physical work that you need to do. So you have to prove yourself that you're able to do the physical work as well as the mental work when it comes to navigation. You probably will have a few men that still would kick against it, but we can do it, so that's their problem.
I have seen the transformation. Today we have ladies in every single position, and for me it is not only about the numbers. I think we are also becoming more bolder and talking, and it's really giving hope to every single person. I think we all have a role to play, and we can just work together and create a beautiful maritime industry that our kids are going to be proud of.
TNPA's success in the maritime space has prompted the organization to apply the same principles in the creation of their own aviation service.
Aviation from 1995, probably when I joined the organization, it was run by a private company. And when I moved into Durban in 2007, I met with the then MD of the company, two of them, and I asked them, guys, you've been supplying this service to Transnet for so long. Show me how many African, Indian people are in your organization. They could not produce any. And we went deep into financial analysis to say how much money we're spending on them as an organization, and they are not transforming. First, we had to hire an expert in aviation. And we sat together with Agrippa, we do the position paper, which is a strategy of how we're going to migrate from an outsourced function to an in-source.
Youngsters looking at where they come from and the different mix and the diversity of our teams.
Some of the class of 99 moved through the ranks of operations into important support roles, drawing on their experiences of life at sea to shape our maritime approach. Dennis Mqadi is one such example, using his experience to change the way we think about safety.
Based on the experience of the Navy, the exposure that I totally faced, let me go and ask myself a question and say, how dynamically can I contribute to your organization differently? And that's when I moved to this executive manager for SHIQ and regulatory oversight for Tnpa. Obviously, it's a bit difficult because now you used to be in the water and you're working alone as an individual. Now you are sitting in a boardroom. So that skill background of being safety-minded all the time and being compliant and ensuring that you need to always tick boxes correctly, it has actually contributed to the skill that I have, this function that I'm heading now.
We look back with pride on our success stories and recognize the important role that education and mentorship have played in the development of our leaders.
I was telling a few colleagues in the classroom there, because some of them are sitting there, are my students, and I'm just telling them that at one stage you were my student, and I'm so proud to see you as an Arbor Master now, because I feel, it touches my heart,
It's nice for me being one of the older Arbor Masters in the system, sitting around the table, sitting young faces, females that I know I've trained, and to see where they are now.
The changes in the maritime industry has created so many opportunities for young people, because somebody like me from Limpopo, who has never been to sea before or even seen an ocean, now has an opportunity to work in a port.
I believe, as a country and as a company, we've got such a huge potential to change the lives of the people. I come from a very, very poor background. And one of the biggest thing is to basically, I feel I'm on this earth for a reason, to make a mark and change other people's lives.
TNPA's current crop of leaders are proud mentors and have had a positive impact on their own communities as ambassadors for an inclusive South African future.
I've always said, as soon as I got into management, and the Port of Mossel Bay was my first port, the one thing I try and leave when I leave that port is to have changed and developed one person. That is my only goal, one person. And if I can change one person's life, hopefully that will become a multiplying effect.
It is very fulfilling to hear somebody telling you that, you my inspiration, you are my role model. I got a lot of those, and I remember at one stage I went to the garage and I saw this young man. He says, I know you as long as this time. He mentioned I think 2002 and 3. He says, the reason for me to push myself is you. You are inspiration. It was a fulfilling thing to hear.
The class of 99 had to overcome adversity on their journey to a transformed industry, and their experience will help us navigate tricky waters to a new era informed by big data and technology.
Maritime education has evolved and it continues to evolve. Appreciate that maritime is much more than seafaring. Being in education and in my position that I'm in now, I see that specifically daily, that we need broader research, we need broader innovation, and through the training programs on offer now, that is what we hope to achieve. To instill in the learner an understanding that there is climate change, there is water scarcity, there is solar energy, and that is all linked to maritime, and how through researching those various aspects of maritime, there's an actual career path that can be forged, much broader, not exclusively to seafaring.
As we look to the future, we acknowledge the trailblazers who have lit the path for future pioneers.
This is where I need to be, this is where I want to be, this is where I'm going to be.
Becoming a pilot resonates with one of my favorite quotes by Ralph Waldo Emerson. It says, "Do not go where the path may lead, go instead where there is no path and leave a trail." And that is how significant becoming a pilot has been for me. I've left a trail.
What an inspiring journey. What an inspiring journey from that documentary. One thing that I have picked up from that journey is that all the beneficiaries are paying it forward. I am going to go back to what Portia said. How are we going to ensure that we create employment opportunities through the service? So from this journey, we have seen that there has been strides that have been made. As we pick up the conversation, that we will be talking in 2020. Mr. Silinga has served a long tenure as the CEO of the Tnpa Development Corporation in the Eastern Cape and specifically in the port and the Ngqura area. Mr. Pepe Silinga's address will also touch on revealing the book launch, the Tnpa Maritime Transformation Legacy Book. Can we please acknowledge Mr. Pepe Silinga?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Program Director Nokuzola. It is my great pleasure and honor to be appearing here today, even though, as correctly pointed out, I have not quite joined. I am deeply honored for the opportunity to join Tnpa, the GCE, distinguished guests, the honorable captains, the DDG from the department, Mr. Sobantu, Commander Tsietsi, and Mr. Homotso, and everybody else. I know one thing for sure, Portia, that number one, my relationship, like most African people, my relationship with water, it's a very tenuous one. I didn't grow up in the coast, and the only time that I visited water, that's where the fights would be picked by boys. So it always imagined a lot of stress. And the second time that you would go and visit water would be when it is a holiday on a Christmas day, where most people then would go to water. I also know for sure that the ships and water were used to transport slaves from motherland to the rest of the world. It is a painful past. I also do know, having looked at the video that was showed, that the sands of time have washed away a lot of the afros that used to be in the heads of the young people who joined the program that was led by Commander Tsietsi. I wondered when I was preparing for this as to exactly what the message would be. And I must pay tribute and pay homage to the visionary leaders that were there at the time, as epitomized by the contribution by Commander Tsietsi. Frantz Fanon says each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. It is safe and quite fair to say this mission appears to have been fulfilled. It's a long journey, though. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. I want to pay homage to the women who have distinguished themselves in clearly very trying circumstances. And I do this, and in particular, Commander Tsietsi, and I would want to evoke your own personal experiences in your own life. In October 1988, 32 years ago, rather 11 years before this particular cohort of the people that we're celebrating today, a young lady who was 24 years old, Pila Portia Ndwandwe, breastfeeding her 2-month-old baby, was abducted, tortured, and kept naked for days on end, only for one reason: to betray her own comrades. She refused to turn against her comrades. In a desperate attempt, kept in a hole, naked, to preserve her dignity. In desperation, took plastic out of which she made a panty for herself. When her bones were discovered in the rolling hills and valleys of KZN, the plastic was there to epitomize that indomitable spirit. Igama lamakhosikazi malibongwe. I say these things because the duty remains. The clarion call, Commander, stays a better life for all. And the GCE was correct in pointing out the principal challenge for our country, which is an inclusive economy, a job creation, a better life for all. I'm sure Commander Tsietsi and many of the people who were there at the time would have bought into this saying. I see things the way they are, and I ask why. And I dream of things the way they could be, and I ask why not. So the GCE has correctly pointed out a port system reimagined, a dynamic system, a center of excellence, an integrated system, an outward-looking system. I take this opportunity to really introduce this TNPA Maritime Heritage Legacy Coffee Table, and thanking you for the opportunity.
Malibongwe. Thank you, Mr. Silinga, for that message. Indeed, an indomitable spirit, a better life for all, an inclusive economy, an integrated, outward-looking port system. Thank you for your message, sir. We really do appreciate it. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take the opportunity and read one of the messages of support from one of our key stakeholders from SASOA. This is a message from the Chief Executive of SASOA, Mr. Peter Besnett. Having worked in the ports for many years, I have witnessed many new developments and changes that has placed us in a very commanding position as far as shipping is concerned. And as we take time and look back on the past 20 years, that has also seen many ups and downs. Along we have what it takes. Along the journey, we have what it takes. This is indeed a proud moment, not just for TNPA, but for what we consider as our contribution to the industry and the country as a whole. We could not have achieved this without the support of our clients and industry partners. As such, we would love to hear comments from our partners. We're going to hear and have a conversation now from a shipping point of view. I would like to call upon the MSC SA chairperson, Captain Sano, who is one of the leading figures in the realm of maritime economics, not just in South Africa, but globally. And he is also one of our most important and valued customers. His accolades are many. He also serves as the chairman of the MSC Mauritius, chairman of MSC Mozambique, and president of MSC Madagascar. Captain Sano, it is always a pleasure to welcome you. Over to you, Captain.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am really honored to be here today. I hope that your choice to have invited me has not been dictated by my age, but by the fact that I have been a spectator of the Tnpa Maritime Transformation. I like your book. It is not just about the Tnpa maritime legacy. It is a deserved tribute to the women and men who, in 21 years, have made possible what most people were whispering would have been an impossible task. I remember very well my first meeting with Commander Mokele, when it was laid the base of a new docking system. His strong leadership and clear vision have guided the Tnpa transformation process to be a successful story. To train in Rotterdam and create first a group of African tug masters, and then to train these tug masters as marine pilots has been simply genial. To prove that the changes implemented by Commander Mokele were the right one emerged when, on the morning of the 10 October 2017, the Durban harbor was struck by an abnormal and violent storm with winds exceeding 180 kilometers per hour. 3 container vessels broke their mooring, floating free in the harbor, with one of them without steering. The young TNP tug masters and pilots faced bravely the storm and succeeded to bring these huge vessels back to their berth without loss of life. It was a true seamanship. It is a must for me to mention Captain Rufus Legala, who, in my opinion, is the best South African seaman I ever met. You should know that until 2009, the South African Port Authority was describing the Port of Durban as having a max draft alongside of 12 meters. A medium-sized container vessel with a air max draft of 14 meters could only berth or sail from Durban at 80% of air cargo capacity. Being a master mariner myself, I tried unsuccessfully for years to convince the old and the new Tnpa management that the 12 meters marked on the nautical charts was the minimum draft that ever occurred, and that the Port of Durban had to be considered a tidal port. As soon as I had the opportunity to explain my theory to a young Captain Rufus, he immediately proceeded with the draft survey along all the berths of the container terminal, and after a little while, Durban became a tidal port. Today, with the collaboration between the port manager, the pilots, and the ship's master, we berth vessels with a draft of 13.5 meters, which means 25,000 tons more of cargo. Thank you, Rufus. Thank you in the name of all the shipping community. We at MSA have always considered Durban as our home port, where our vessels can get the necessary maintenance and dry dock. The improvement of such a facility will create hundreds of new jobs. Today, the pandemic has slowed down all the plans of transformation. MSA Shosholoza Ocean Academy planned to train 5,000 young South Africans to be employed on our passenger ships has been temporarily closed. However, in cooperation with SAMHSA, we continue to employ and train on board of our container vessels 25 deck cadets at any time. We as MSA, we will continue always to be involved and to participate in the transformation of the South African maritime. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Sano, for those valuable comments. Indeed, it is not just about TNPA. It is a tribute to all the men and women who paved the way so that we have the new generation of mariners. We also thank you, Captain Sano, as TNPA, for being our partner all through the years. From a maritime safety point of view, I would like now to welcome the Acting Chief Executive, Mr. Sobantu Dilai. Mr. Dilai has been instrumental in driving the vision of transitioning SAMHSA into a world-class maritime authority that works with the industry to encourage job creation and economic growth. Over to you, Mr. Dilai.
Thank you, Program Director, and good day to everyone, in particular my greetings to GCE Transnet, the outgoing and acting CE of TNPA, the incoming CE of TNPA, Lamin Wamkelekile Bhuti. SAMHSA would wish to congratulate TNPA on such a momentous milestone as well as a great achievement. It is our belief that the precondition for a vibrant and sustainable maritime economy is a safe and secure maritime domain. The South African port system is at the heart of maritime logistics, and the safety of this port system determines the competitiveness of the entire economy, which economy is dependent on the very port system. Thus, the capacity building exercise that was started by TNPA back then has assisted the country to be where we are today. And we pride ourselves about a safe port system that is very well run. I'm aware that at the time that this journey began, the journey of these men and women, and the port system was resourced by no less than about 30% of foreign nationals. 20% of which were over the retirement age back then. I'm also aware that there were huge concerns about the safety of the port system when this cohort of expertise began to qualify, and that there were threats regarding the perceived lowering of standards. And at some stage, I do know that the industry even contemplated some surcharges, and the insurance industry contemplated premiums due to the perceived risk that was going to qualified people. Now, SAMSA, being the custodian of maritime safety, appreciates the work that Tnpa has done in respect of upholding the safety standards. In a country where we have determined the need for the maritime sector to contribute more to the economy, we are pleased that Mrs. Portia, as she was mentioning, sees this need. And we also wish to suggest that the harbor masters will play a very critical role in this future. I am talking of the new frontiers that we need to open up as a country in offshore development, whether offshore bunkering systems, whether offshore ship-to-ship cargo transfers, or even the gas logistics that are being spoken about in the ports of Richards Bay and Kucha. It is my belief that those harbor masters will have to take the necessary risks, and as Teresa put it in the video, to traverse the road that is less traveled in order to seek and realize every advantage this country can get using what we already have, that is our maritime heritage. On a personal note, I wish to congratulate all the men and women that are being celebrated today, and specifically to thank the cooperation of the Tnpa with SAMSA, and in particular to thank Captain Ligala. I saw this partnership work very well, and it became very apparent that we need it at the time we were confronted with the difficulties associated with COVID, where we had to close the port system and decide just how we open it and decide what to do in very unusual circumstances. I am proud to have been associated with, and I am proud to have been part of the journey that has become a story and that will become a legend in any future. Thank you so much. And once more, congratulations. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Tilai, for your message. Indeed, we need to take the risks. And as SAMSA being one of our important industry partners, it is quite important that the risks that we take do only take the maritime industry forward. And now we're going to also move to most of our important stakeholders to hear from a port user's point of view. And the port users will be represented by other than the Department of Transport. From a port consultative chairperson, I would like to welcome the Acting Deputy Director General for the Maritime Transport, and he is the chairperson of the national PCCs. Mr. Mtunze Madia, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Program Director Nokuzola Ngowane. Ms. Portia Debbie, GCE for Transnet, welcome. Acting Chief Executive Officer, Khumotso Phihlela, the incoming Chief Executive for the authority, Mr. Pepi Silinga. We are welcome, my good sir. My good Captain Rufus, Commander Tsietsi Mokele, the most important, one of the most important customers in this industry, Captain Salvatore Sano. Good day, sir. My fellow colleague and acting Chief Executive for SAMSA, Mr. Tilai, and the audience at large. Certain historical events in the South Africa, including the current pandemic, have been in one way or the other a true demonstration of our ability to look beyond boundaries and differences, unite and work together for the good. The 20 years Tnpa transformation journey can be viewed as one such demonstration of uniting through diversity. It is said that the true reputation of an organization is not only measured by its return, but also by how it treats and cares for its employees. The individual developmental journey shared in the Tnpa Maritime Transformation Legacy Book is truly something deserving to be highlighted, uploaded, and treasured. The government, specifically the Department of Transport, is proud and takes this opportunity to acknowledge the role that Tnpa played in recognizing the potential in each one of these studies. In each one of these case studies, demonstrating its ability to be inclusive by taking this individual from diverse background through the organization's transformation journey, and by so doing, placing South Africa as an ideal of change and a benchmark within the maritime industry. The Tnpa gender ratio of inclusivity and developmental transformation is admirable, and indeed can be used as a guideline and a role model for many government departments and private businesses within our country. As we duly celebrate this wonderful milestone today, we must also be careful not to be complacent. We haven't yet arrived. The 20 years transformation journey is to say we are capable of breaking down boundary walls and to say more can still be done. Chapter 3, Section 11I of the National Ports Act of 2005 states that one of the functions of the Ports Authority is to promote the achievement of equality by measures designed to advance persons or categories of persons historically disadvantaged by unfair discriminations in the operation of facilities in the ports environment. With this in mind, I take this opportunity today to urge the authority to embark on a further transformation journey, which will seek to ensure that in the next 20 years, their focus moves to economic emancipation of South Africans in the port system, particularly Black South Africans, to have access in the port space in the form of terminal operations and in the rail estates of the authority, which remain elusive for many South Africans, among other things. This will certainly be a meaningful contribution of the authority to the maritime sector, as it is enshrined in the comprehensive maritime transport policy. Lastly, I would like to take this opportunity and thank Ms. Manjongo and his team for putting together this program. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Madia, for that message. Ladies and gentlemen, as the maritime the port users, the policymaker through the Tnpa Act, Department of Transport has spoken. We have not yet arrived. We cannot be complacent. More needs to be still done. We need to ensure that we promote the achievement of equality through all aspects of our business and our operations. We thank you, Mr. Madia. And now I am going to bring back Commander Tsietsi Mokele and also Captain Rufus Lika. We have celebrated, we have seen the milestones to date. Now, we need to hear how are we going to take this industry? What are the highlights that we can use from this inspiring journey to take us forward in the maritime industry? Commander Tsietsi, through the highlights, through the documentary and the legacy book and your own journey, if you can talk to us now, what can we take that is going to make us grow as the industry? And how are you going to motivate us as an industry, whether it is through the leadership, it is through those that still aspire to get to the industry? Over to you, Commander.
Thank you so much for allowing me to come back and maybe just share a few thoughts about the future as learnings from the past. I did mention earlier that the way the results of the 1999 project has proven itself over 20 years, there must have been certain learnings out of that experience that can propel us forward. And my response is going to be informed by how much the market will have changed as we reopen our economy. The pandemic has been the greatest game changer of our times. Where we thought we had seen revolutions and transformations, what we have been called upon today will require us to utilize maybe one or two learnings out of the past. The first is the issue that we need a common vision for the future that we're leaping into. That needs to be crafted by the leadership and sold to the larger community of stakeholders. The second thing is that we need leaders of courage, leaders who do what is necessary, because they're not accepting the way the world is, but want the world to be the way the world can actually be. Maybe citing from our incoming CE on the why not question. The third element is execution, execution, execution. And I want to raise one or two issues very quickly. Some 5 weeks ago, when the Gazette came out on the strategic integrated projects that were coming out of the presidency, to my personal horror, there was no game for Transnet except the Bokubai issue. And that was envisaging how we overcome the effect of the pandemic. And immediately we called the presidency and we mobilized the BRICS partners and said, we just cannot walk into that future the same way we entered the pandemic environment. And therefore, in our recovery strategy, the ports must be key, must be top of mind. All efforts of the recovery must be brought on the issues of transforming our ports and creating a sense of agency. And the reason for that is simple. Our GDP basket, 60% of it is made out of international trade. We reach when we're trading more. We reach when we generate a surplus. And therefore, the ability to trade internationally competitively, and that truly means 100% of our total trade going through the port system. That's 90% to be more accurate in volumes. It means the port system must step forward and be counted. And I'm happy that the GCE is here because there are 4 players in that context in my thinking about the recovery. And it's a 1 to 3 year recovery. And the 99 group has shown. We started 1999, by 2004, these young committed warriors of transformation had already assumed the position of, okay. Just the last point I wanted to come to is that we need to center our logistics pipelines, particularly the rail, the ports, the inland ports, and the ITZ as the center of our recovery. And immediately thereafter, in about 3 years, leap into growth and then transform our economy based on decarbonization and digitalization. This is what I'm wishing that the sense of agency can be learned from the class of 1999. They were doers, they were fast to market, and they did what was necessary. I thank you.
Thank you, Commander, for those words. We have heard him highlighting three things that we need to take forward as the Port Authority, as Transnet, and overall as the maritime industry. We need to all have a common vision. We need leaders of courage that will do what is necessary. In our recovery, post the pandemic, post-COVID-19 pandemic, we need to execute and execute. The recovery strategy can only be successful if the port system is in the forefront. And because of that, international trade is important. So the center of logistics pipe is of utmost importance. Commander, you do have the Tnpa leadership. You do have the Transnet leadership. You also have industry role play listening to you. We do have the mandate, ladies and gentlemen. Let me bring in now once more Captain Rufus Likala. You are not only just the beneficiary and as a participant in the class of 1999, but you also had to find yourself on the other side as having to execute further on what was started way back then. Can you just talk to us briefly on how then does this legacy shape the caliber of the next generation of mariners beyond 20? Captain Rufus.
Thanks, Nobuzola. Yeah, it is amazing what one of our center pillar of success in this zones. The success of this particular journey from a Tnpa and Transnet point of view was consistency, because we knew that the leadership at the time had a strategy and a vision that was going to be inclusive. When we came in as a leadership, we thought, look, there is no need for us to go and change the strategy. What we needed to do was make sure that we actually and employ continuous improvement there and there. Where the strategy lacks, we keep refining it and making sure that it helps the organization to adjust to the situations of today. And that also assisted me as a leader of the team. It is very difficult for you to be a leader of your colleagues. Remember, there were 12 of us. And among 12 of us, I then became the leader of the 12. But it's consultation with the team, consultation, and consistency. It's just like when you go to a restaurant of your favorite and you want to go and buy your favorite meal, you find that this meal is not consistent with what you used to. You will walk away. In this instance, we wanted to make sure that we give the customers, which are the shipping lines, a consistent decision-making across the port system, underpinned by excellence in terms of our skills of pilots, tug masters, the infrastructure that we had to put down. I mean, the tugboats that we have procured, the 70-ton tugboats. We were using 40-ton tugboats at the time when we need to make sure that we reinvent ourselves as a port authority. But the biggest challenge going forward in the next 20 years is gone beyond human capital. I think the Port Authority, we are an infrastructure development Port Authority. We need to make sure that in our lifetime, we see a new port. In our lifetime, we see deeper ports. In our lifetime, as the acting DDG of the Department of Transport was saying, emancipation of previously disadvantaged South Africans in the port system. And that journey, and I think Mr. Pepe Slinger coming in has his work cut out is that we need to make sure that we draft a strategy that is going to be clear, consistent in terms of execution. I read a book by the CEO of IBM who says you can have a strategy. I mean, you can have whatever strategy you have, but if you don't execute on it, it's as good as the strategy is not there. So execution plus continuous improvement. Thanks, Nagozola.
Thank you, Captain Rufus, for that message. It is about execution, consultation, consistency. We've much further. As a port authority, it is about the infrastructure. As the leadership, the maritime industry, it is our role to ensure that in this lifetime, we do see another new, we do have deeper ports. Thank you, Captain Rufus Likala. At stage, I would like to bring back Chief Executive, Mr. Pepe Silinga. I know, Mr. Pepe Silinga, it might have been an opportune time for you to have, but also it could be that it's a baptismal of fire. I am not going to put you on the spot, sir. Having listened from all the panelists, but also on the documentary, can you share your reflections with us on how this legacy informs your aspirations for the entry? And when you do that, we'll also take your few closing remarks. Thank you. And over to you, Mr. Silinga.
Thank you, Program
Where
Director.
you will be sharing with us your aspirations.
Thank you, Program Director. Well, Program Director, human capital is a very fundamental element of any competitive company. In a society which was marked by disadvantaging of the majority of the people, the competent people, the skilled people, the experienced people become that much more valuable because they might be far and few in between. Utilization, and to borrow a term, full utilization of those people, or positive exploitation of the skill that has been developed over a period of time, using the hard-earned taxpayers' money and the personal time that has been dedicated to development of that human capital, should in fact yield benefits for the South African society by us making sure that the colleagues are fully utilized and their personal aspirations of being the best that they can be are activated and realized within the port system. I share the vision that has been articulated by the GCE of a reimagined system that responds to customers, that works with customers in such a way that they are able to maximize their return on investment, that if and when given an opportunity, they would choose to actually come to one of the South African ports if there are alternatives out there, and a port system that responds to the contemporary challenges that have been posed by a variety of the latest challenges, whether it is green port systems or whether it is decline of some of the metals that are very dominant in the South African landscape that might affect the nature of the cargo that would have to be handled, or whether it would be a system that responds to the climate challenges, or a system that actually responds to the changing character of the ships that are traversing the length and breadth of the world, and a system as well that recognizes that if it is left out of the silk or the belt and silk system as being developed and envisaged by China and the rest of the world, that we run the risk of being in the periphery of the economy. And that for me is what I aspire to contribute towards in the collective pursuit of a South African vision of a better life for all. Thank you, Program Director.
Thank you, Mr. Selinga, for that message and for sharing with us your aspirations of competent skills and full utilization of resources that are available to us. But also borrowing from our group chief executive, you've also noted that it is about technological challenges. MS Teams is rebooting globally, and in some parts we might be impacted. We will be doing a rebroadcast if you have missed any of our conversation at 2 p.m. But please bear with us. We appreciate you. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we have reached the end of our virtual Maritime Heritage celebration. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to everyone who contributed today. With all thank you, but as you understand, you unfortunately cannot read all of them. If you would like to access the ebook or documentary video, these will be made available via links on our website and on social media, which will also be circulated to attendees and other stakeholders. You can find Transnet National Ports Authority on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And the organizers have just whispered to me that if you are a TNPA employee, you will be receiving a soft copy of our Maritime Heritage Transformation Legacy. It is Heritage Day. Happy Heritage Day. And also, most importantly, for the mariners and those that are in this industry, is World Maritime Day. So let us celebrate. Remember the theme, sustainable shipping for a sustainable planet. Congratulations, TNPA, for 2 decades of maritime evolution. I thank you for your time. We appreciate you.